I'm on a lot of Facebook sites, groups, especially about gardening. I love gardening. I love tomatoes in particular. I grow hundreds of different kinds, but there's one subject that just never seems to go away. On any group on Facebook, every 3 hours there's going to be somebody else asking, blossom end rot. Why do they have it? And it might be on squash, watermelons. It might be on cucumbers. It might be on anything, and it can be on anything. If it is a flowering fruit, it can get BER, blossom end rot. And there will be 85 answers, 85 comments to these people that are trying to learn, and 85 people are going to say, not enough water, not enough calcium, add eggshells, which I'm going to right now. Eggshells are useless to add. They're full of calcium, but it takes forever for them to break down. Months and months. You can ground eggshells to powder, and it's still not gonna add calcium right now to the soil. And the biggest thing to remember is very, very, very rarely is there a calcium deficiency. Lack of water, yes. That will it can't carry the calcium up if there's not getting water, but it's also not carrying nitrogen or any of the other sulfur. It ain't carrying anything up. But what people don't understand is the information is out there. Everybody goes to a group and they ask a whole group a question, and then they believe the answer. And because the answer is usually lack of water or lack of calcium, they actually believe that to be the truth, when both of those answers are rarely the case. Rarely. If the plant is alive, it's carrying water. It's carrying water up there. And if there's calcium in it, it's carrying the calcium with it. But what everybody talks about is nitrogen. Nitrogen is just like a Tums for antacid. Nitrogen is a blocker. It is a micronutrient blocker. Anytime the nitrogen, high nitrogen, one, it ties up the calcium in the soil to where it can't even be absorbed. Calcium can't. If you had a bathtub full of calcium growing a plant in it, and the nitrogen is high, it cannot absorb any. It can't. So it doesn't matter how much calcium is there. It's the nitrogen. And I just done a search. It's just high nitrogen. Let me go to the other one. This one's actually high nitrogen blossom end rot, but anybody doing a search might not think about the nitrogen until they learn about it. So I'm just putting in blossom end rot. That's it. Blossom end rot. And every single one of these is going to say, here's one from Bonnie's Plants. Click on blossom end rot for Bonnie's Plants, and it's going to go so what it is. Vegetables need calcium in healthy development. When tomatoes, peppers, melons, eggplants get enough from the soil, the tissue on the blossom end of the fruit breaks down. It may be because of calcium shortage, but generally it's calcium is present, but it's tied up in soil chemistry because one, the pH is too low, or too much fertilizer causing the plant to grow too fast, and the calcium can't move quickly enough. The best way to avoid it, obviously, is going to talk about water, and then fertilize wisely. Let me move it up just a little bit more. Okay, use a fertilizer at planting time that contains calcium. Of course, it doesn't matter what kind it is. Whichever fertilizer you choose, make sure to follow the directions on the label. This is a very good point. It doesn't matter what kind of fertilizer you use. If you use a fertilizer that is made specifically for tomatoes, if you use one that's made for tomatoes and most all flowering plants, the nitrogen is going to be the lowest number. The first number is the nitrogen, and it will always be lower than the rest. But if you use twice as much as what you should have, or 3 times as much as what you should have, then you have too much nitrogen. The others are irrelevant because the nitrogen will not let the plant absorb anything else. Whichever fertilizer you choose, be sure to follow the directions on the label so you will know how much to apply. It is important not to over-fertilize. Adding too much nitrogen during early fruit, especially if the nitrogen is made from ammonia, ties the calcium up in the soil chemistry. And you're going to find, going back and forth here, pick another one. I do not believe that you can find a credible publication or writing that will not say in it, blossom end rot occurs during periods of rapid growth and can be induced by low calcium, possible, low phosphorus, high magnesium, high nitrogen. You will not find, I simply do not believe that you can possibly find any publication that will not warn you about high nitrogen, and yet it is never said. It's never said. Let me go to 2. I mean, just picking and choosing here. No matter where you go, blossom end rot is disorder of growing fruit that causes cells at the bottom end of the fruit to die. The cellular death seems to be due to the lack of calcium within the affected cells. The exact cause of the calcium deficiency that affects cells is largely debated, but we know that the disorder only affects rapidly growing fruit. People, when is a plant growing the best? It's when there's nitrogen. The more nitrogen it is, the faster the plant grows. And a plant physiology, it has stages. It's supposed to grow, and then it's supposed to reproduce. When the two are mixed up, it simply cannot occur. The flowers the blooms they're gonna bloom, and they're going to fall off. They're not even gonna get the nutrients needed to pollinate. A tomato in particular is self-pollinating. It's almost impossible for a tomato not to pollinate itself if it's outside and the wind blows on it. It is pollinated before the flower ever even opens. The pollen is bitter. Few bugs like it at all. Other things, your squash, other things like that, yes. You can hand pollinate those. You can hand pollinate tomatoes simply by shaking the bush, or you can breed your own tomatoes by hand pollinating them if you're lucky. Cut the bloom off early and pollinate them. But the fact still remains: high nitrogen. Everybody overlooks it. Everybody overlooks it. Here's the almanac.com. What it is, peppers, eggplant, squash. Blossom end rot is caused by lack of calcium in the plant. That is a fact. Lack of calcium. But it doesn't mean it's not there. Rarely is it not there. It goes on about Obviously water. That can absolutely. I mean that has to be addressed. But here's the facts. If the calcium is there and you water perfectly, and there's too much nitrogen, too much nitrogen heavy fertilizer, that's boom. And right here, damage to plants' roots. This right here is another fact. You know, whenever you're in the garden hoeing and if you're not container growing or whatever, and you're weeding, most of the time tomatoes' roots are not deep, especially if you're watering. If you're watering, you are training the roots to be close to the top of the ground. You're training them. So if you're in there weeding, it doesn't take very much. You disturb the soil a half an inch deep. That's another big one right there. But this video is basically to show you that it's not about actual lack of calcium in the soil, and it's not always about inconsistent watering. You know if you watered or not. But it's high nitrogen. High nitrogen affects everything. If it doesn't absorb the sulfur, if it doesn't absorb the other things, you're going to have cracking. If it doesn't absorb the sulfur, it's for the skin on the tomato. They're not going to be resistant to disease. They're not going to be resistant to bugs. They're not going to be drought resistant even. Everything has every nutrient. There's 16 of them. Every single one of them are just as important as the last. The law of minimum says that if you're short of anything, a micronutrient, if you're short of it, then if you're short of it, then you're not getting what you need to have healthy fruit. It's just that simple. I haven't made very many videos, and I know that I stutter a lot and get twisted, and I'm probably going to learn how to talk. But at this moment, I am I'm looking for something here. I'm probably going to have to edit some of this out. So let's see. It's going to take me a minute. Crash.